Welcome to another episode of F&I Fuel Chat with Rob and Jeremiah. Today's question is, what is the biggest claim you've ever seen on an F&I product?
Wow. Okay, so, I can use names on this one because this is not the customer's name, obviously. So, many years back, one of the service contract carriers that we do a lot of business with was actually the factory program for Land Rover, Jag, Volvo, and Mazda. This, I don't know the year, 99, 2000, somewhere around there. Anyway, so we were assigned all the Land Rover stores in the whole area that we work in.
Yeah, they're always good with claims.
Yeah, check. Well, how good a Land Rover is. Check the rates on a service contract on a Land Rover. So, claim comes in. I get a phone call from the dealership asking me to get involved in this claim. It was a very weird claim. It was an engine claim. Okay, so on one of those really expensive Land Rovers. So if anybody knows anything about Range Rover, Land Rover, which I know very little, these are not cheap cars. They definitely break. And when they break, they are expensive to fix. So this engine, it was an aluminum block engine. I remember that. And I called the claims line. I talked to the head of claims, and they're explaining to me that the engine melted. So I'm talking to a claims guy. Like, the term melted.
Yeah, may have a little bit of overheating.
I don't hear melted a lot when I'm calling in claims, right? So I'm like, what do you mean it melted? Well, the engine seized, and the block of the aluminum block actually somehow melted to some degree. I'm like, dude, what's it take to melt aluminum? He goes, I don't know. I don't know either. I said, well, what's the status of the claim? Well, right now it's denied. However, the factory wants to get involved in this. Well, why? Well, because I'm not really sure. I said, well, let me call the customer. Did you call the customer? Yeah, we called the customer. Customer didn't really talk too much. I'm like, well, what's going on? I said, well, why don't I just give him a call and see if I can get some information on it. So So the claim actually took place in New Jersey. I called the customer, and the first thing the customer says to me is, I'd just like you to know I'm an attorney. And I was like, oh, all right. Okay, not that there's anything wrong with attorneys. But when you start a call like that with, I'm an attorney, you kind of know where this is going, right? So I said, okay, listen, I'm not really calling you to find out what you do for a living. I'm really calling you to find out what happened to the vehicle. I work with Land Rover, and I'm talking to them about your claim, and the more information you give me, the better off I am. And the first thing the guy says to me is, well, that's yet to be seen. I'm like, oh, okay. You know what I'm dealing with now, right? So I said to him, listen, my understanding is the aluminum block engine in your Land Rover, Range Rover, whatever it was, melted. Yeah. I said, okay, well, did you notice anything going wrong with the car?
Were you sweating with the heat?
Yes, well, yeah. He says, no. I said, okay. I said, listen, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know what temperature you have to get to melt aluminum, but I'm going to assume it's kind of high, right? Did you notice the paint bubbling on the hood of the car? No. Were you paying attention when you were driving? Where were you looking? Were you looking in the rearview mirror?
The sunroof.
I mean, were you driving out I can't even see me. When you're driving out the window like this? And of course the guy's doing the lawyer thing, and he's just telling me the bare... Anyway, I'm getting nowhere with this guy, but you can imagine the hilarity of saying, did you notice the paint literally bubbling on the hood of your car as you're looking over the hood of your car?
Did you notice when you spontaneously combusted as you're driving?
Did you have the AC on? Because it had to be warm. Anyway.
That's crazy.
So this is the crazy part. That's crazy enough, right? So then I end up talking to Land Rover, or Range Rover, whoever they are. And I'm talking like the regional whatever. And I said to this gentleman, I'm like, look, man, this claim should actually be denied. Now, I'm not one to deny claims. I'm not the arbiter of claims, but the reality of it is, if you were to drive a vehicle so long
that it melted,
that you melted an aluminum block engine, I would call that continued operation, literally by definition, and that's usually not covered. Anyway, so I'm speaking to the factory gentleman, and I said, look, I mean, if it were me, I would deny this. Not that it's my call, but this is obviously customer problem, you know? And he says, well, I think we're going to approve it. I said, look, it's your money. You can approve anything you want. I'm just giving you my opinion. I said, but just let me ask you, why? Why would you approve something like that? He said, well, so when you've never worked for the factory, I'm like, you're darn right, I've never worked for a factory. He said, well, here's what would have to happen in order for us to prove in court that this customer actually caused the problem. I said, well, court. He said, yeah, well, the customer's an attorney. You got to assume we're going to end up in court, right? I guess. He said, well, here's what we'd have to do. We'd have to reproduce the problem 4 times to prove that the customer did what we're saying they did, which basically means we'd have to melt 4 $22,000 engines to not pay the $22,000 engine on that car. I said, so you're telling me it's math? And he said, yeah, it was math. So that was by far the weirdest claim I've ever been
That's
involved
weird.
in.
I mean, I had a couple gap claims pretty big. Had one over $30,000, which is insane.
That's not a gap. That's a chasm. that's the Grand Canyon of gaps. What is that?
So for you guys, make comments. Some of your craziest, biggest claim you've ever seen. Thanks.